Hi everyone, it's Momma G, and today is the day for our sourdough bread. It's been fermenting on the counter, let's see, for 2 days now, and as you can tell, it's getting real bubbly and yummy. I may end up doing some pizza on one and then the bread in the other. So this will be a great opportunity for you to watch and learn and grow and all that stuff. Well, maybe not grow, maybe grow out because bread is so yummy. So anyway, first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take this sourdough starter. I fed it again last night, so it's had a few feedings now, and it's, you know, ripe and bubbly and ready to go into the blender. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this over, and I like to mix it up. Let's see, we're gonna set you there. Eventually I'll get one of those video cameras and get actually high tech, but anyway, we're gonna take this and I'm gonna get out my mixer. I like to use this hook over this hook. This hook is better when it's less soupy, and so we kind of change that out later. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna first set this up, and this is kind of the first set of the process. So I take all this starter and I just start out by putting it in the mixer. And yep, I use it all. The other bowl, like I said, we'll end up making pizza dough. The great thing about pizza dough is you can make it ahead. You can wrap it up in a ball and put it in your fridge and use it tomorrow if you wanted. Now I like to take in and keep the spatula handy so that way I can like rub down the sides and do some stuff that way. So first things, so I take about a cup of water and about a tablespoon or two, a tablespoon and a half of yeast, dry yeast, and stir that around just to get it hydrated and started up, get it active. And we'll be adding this to the wet sponge I have in here that's been added to the bowl. Now one thing you want to do is make sure that you have a good consistency of wet and dry ingredients. I put in some of the flour right away so that way it can kind of start getting a little bit more food. We just don't want it to stop, you know, livening up and fermenting up. So first thing I like to do is just put about a half of a cup of flour in and just kind of beat it a little bit and give it something to munch on while this is hydrating. This is how it looks. The bowl. Just kind of put it in there and start allowing it to incorporate in the mix. And then this is gonna take a few minutes to ferment. This is the exciting part because this is where we start developing this sponge into dough. And sourdough is, you know, the basics. It's the flour, it's the other ingredients that make it yummy. Now what I mentioned before is that I use dill and caraway seed. So I actually use the seeds in it, which to me, makes more sense. Okay, now what we're doing is we're just gonna take some of this water that we were letting the yeast hydrate in. And what we're making is the leavened. Leavened is just, it's actually a French word for leaven or rise. And so what we're doing is we're incorporating it in here and helping it to hydrate. It's actually going to be resting for a few minutes afterwards. But before we add any oil or salt, you want, because salt slows down the fermentation process or the rise, natural rise. You want to kind of incorporate this in and make sure that we're adding in some of our flour. About a half a scoop at a time, say 100 grams at a time. 100 grams is a cup. So I got like 2 cups in there now. I put a cup in earlier. It's just taking that flour down, and it's doughy, and what it'll do is it'll just hydrate there for a little bit. And I'll come back and add some more ingredients, and you guys can see the rest of the process. Down before I could show you, but this had risen up. This is called the hieroglyphs. We're gonna kind of stir that down, and then now is when we add a bit more of the flour, some of the oil. I use about a 1/4 cup of oil in here. And we're going to add another cup, half a cup at a time, just a little at a time. Some of this caraway seeds and dill seed. Caraway dill, it kind of makes it taste good. Right. Just kind of give that a little bit of love. Funny thing about when I make bread, I have a hard time measuring, and I know a lot of people do, but I've been making it so long that I just know what it's supposed to look like. So, call me weird, I don't know. But I'm going to stir this in and then come back when we start kneading it into the dough. Okay, now is the time that we add a bit of honey. This moment, I'm gonna take this up so you can kind of see what we have going on here. So I like to put a little bit of flour on my hands before I pull this off. And now is when we're gonna change out this dough hook, or this to a dough hook, now that we've kind of mixed it up. So I'm taking this off. Kind of, you can see it kind of stretches a little bit. That's the glutens breaking down and doing their great stuff. Okay, so take that off. Now, I'm gonna add in, while we got the dough hook off, I'm gonna add in like a scoop or 2 of honey. And this just gives it a nice sweet flavor in the bread. So I'd say it's about maybe a 1/4 cup, something like that. Yep, not very technical. Yeah. Next, we want to put this dough hook in and mix this in. The last step I'll be doing is I'll be adding the salt. It's just flour, water, and salt is really what makes up sourdough bread, but we add a little bit of extra textures and stuff to help it rise well and help it maintain its consistency. So that honey is going to mix on up in there, and let me just show you a little bit of that mixing in. And last, I'll end up adding a little bit more flour. I got a quarter cup of flour. Just let that dough mix in where it starts pulling from the sides. And then once it does that second rise, is when I'll knead in the salt. Salt slows the rise, and I want to give it as much time to rise as possible. It really goes through about 3 to 4 rises before we actually bake with it. I'm just going to let it sit here for about another about 5 minutes, and then we will come back and knead it. Knead the salt into it, and then set it up for its final rise before putting it in pans and baking it. Okay, so taking this down, take a little sprinkling of flour, scoop this out, and knead the dough. May seem a little messy, but it's definitely worth it. This is the reason why some people use a bread maker. Not me. I seem to like this stuff. I don't know why, but so just a matter of kneading this in here a little bit. Thank you. The floury process. You can kind of tell the texture. If it's really hard to knead, probably needs a little bit more rise. It's a process of moving it around a little bit. Just a little at a time. Until it starts to stick. Put a little bit more of this down. Until it's good. Knead it until it's not really too sticky anymore. Now here's the point where I put in a little salt. And this is kneaded in. I've learned to do it this way so as not to interfere with the rise too much. So I take my salt. It's probably a total of a teaspoon of salt, give or take. but you want to kind of knead this in well enough, along with the flour. And that salt is the secondary piece to your rise. And again, it doesn't inhibit the wild yeast from rising so much when you add the salt after. Now we're gonna take it and just leave it on the counter here to just rest a few minutes. And then we will just gonna throw some flour on it, let it sit here, and it'll rise. Just throw a towel over it. Just let it rise for a few minutes. This is a rosemary oil. And once this gives a little time to rest, about 5-10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, I will put it in this bucket with a little oil with a lid on it and set it in my oven with the light on. After about an hour to 2 hours, it will rise double its size. Okay, so this sucker has risen. Has risen indeed. So we're gonna take it up off the counter here and knead it down a little bit, get some of the air out, and we're gonna put it in. I'm gonna put them in here in a bowl with a little bit of this oil. Just kind of roll it around a bit. I'm gonna coat it. I'm gonna stick the lid on. And we're gonna put it in the oven. Only with the light on, because that gives it a little bit of heat, but not so much that it cooks it. So if you want to check it out, that's the way it looks in the oven. Okay, it's going to rise there for about an hour to 2 and double in size, and then we'll stick it in pans and so guess what? Look at that bread. It is doubled in size. We pop off the lid and this is the fun part, is punching it down. Punching it down, let that air go back out of it, and setting it up. So this is a really simple part of this process. I usually just take it out, set it on here, kind of get all the air bubbles out. And take the knife, cut it up to 2 parts. And I usually just take and tuck it underneath to where it's kind of taut on this top part, and roll it under and lay it in the pan. I have 2 pans actually. And these are gonna go, or gonna sit here for another maybe 15-20 minutes. And rise one last time before going in the oven. That'll be amazing tomorrow. I'm just gonna slice a few slices on top. What that does is while it rises, just helps it when it bakes. So it's got a few slices on it, and then we're just gonna let it sit here and rise up. Set the timer or the oven, turn it on. I cook at 375, and usually it takes about 45 minutes. But we're gonna let this rise for about 15 more minutes, and then we'll throw it in the oven and bake it. It's gonna smell amazing. Okay, these are going in now. They're nice and full. What we do typically is take a few pieces of ice, throw those in. Believe it or not, that actually helps give a little bit of steam to help the rise. We'll time it for 45 minutes, and then we're gonna have bread. Oh my, check that out. Now that is some serious bread rising. Look at the golden crust. It's just about done now. We're gonna give it a few more minutes. It's just under 40 minutes, so we're looking at a half hour at this point. It smells great. This is the moment of truth. My friends, we have some amazing sourdough bread, or wild yeast bread, that has just turned out amazing. Look at that rise. And oh my goodness, the smell of this makes everybody hungry. Now, not everybody does this, but I do it to give that nice crust. This is what you get in the stores. You get that nice buttery crust. Well, I do this to my bread. And, well, it's loved even more because of it. But gives it that yummy, buttery goodness. And then I mean, crusty yumminess for days. I will have to take a slice of this because you all need to see the inside of this. It's just amazing. Well, good morning. This, my friends, is the morning after. We are going to slice up some bread. It was very late last night, so we're going to take some of this great bread and show you the crust. Slips right out. Now, this is this great bread that we made. Sliceable. And oh, it still smells good. Just want to show you this crust. Oh my goodness, look at that. See all the great, and it's definitely got a great chew. Slap some butter on there or not, still gonna be good. Now And last night had a good crunch too. Yummy as always. Look at that. I usually so good. I mean, it's spongy and fluffy. So this is just one thing you can make with the sourdough wild yeast. I'll probably be making some cinnamon rolls later too. So maybe I'll put a whole episode of that on. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Great bread. Oh, I wanted to share one more thing. So when you're storing your bread, a lot of times people put it in a paper bag or a plastic bag. I like to store it in tin foil. Weird enough, it keeps its texture. It doesn't mold as fast. One of the things that you'll find different from your store-bought bread is this stuff actually molds if you don't use it. It will go bad. So use it, eat it. I usually make 2 loaves and freeze one while we're eating the other one. It's only a couple days and then I'm pulling out the other one. But it freezes real well. It has a nice buttery taste, so it's great for sandwiches. We got some greens growing, so that'll be good on that. In any case, happy Saturday. This is how we start off our weekend, is with some good bread, and then head outside, work in the great outdoors until winter decides otherwise. So stay with us, and we'll make some more recipes later on down the road. Bye.